I'm here with award-winning artist and autism advocate Ayanna Davis. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
You're known as phenomenally autistic. Can you tell me a little bit about how you found out you were autistic?
I found out by accident. I was not connecting with my doctors, and so they saw the disconnect. So they just gave me a full evaluation. We wasn't seeking a diagnosis. So after we did the evaluation, I honestly that was the last thing that I expected them to say. And they came back. The evaluation was long. It was a long process. They spoke to me. They spoke to my dad. They asked him how I was as a child, and they came back and they was like, "Yeah, she's on the spectrum." We found some other things as well: ADHD, dyslexia, a bunch of stuff. But like the autism was like the main thing, and where what they noticed, and I feel like that's why they chose to look for evaluate me, and that's how I got my diagnosis. It was by accident.
Wow, that's really great. Growing up, I wasn't really aware of autism. I feel like
Me either.
until yeah, until maybe the last few years, you see a lot more of it, awareness spreading. So what led to you being a champion for Black people that have autism?
um I decided to advocate for autistic people, women in particular, because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know any other Black autistic women until I got online and started meeting other Black autistic women. I think on TikTok. But even when I got online, it was still mostly parents of autistic children and autistic boys. It really wasn't a lot of girls because, girls, it looks different in girls, so the signs are often missed. So I decided to advocate, to what to look out for and just for more visibility so people can realize Black women can be autistic. There are Black women roaming the earth. A lot of them don't know they're autistic. They're misdiagnosed as bipolar. I at one point was on bipolar meds because they didn't know what was wrong with me, and I'm not even bipolar. I just had to fight for myself to get off of bipolar meds. I'm like, why do y'all have me on this? I'm not bipolar. So I just felt like it was something that I needed to do for myself and for those who just don't want to do it but know that I can appreciate others that do it.
Wow, that seems very dangerous though. Like you could be taking medication that has
Yeah,
no.
it is dangerous. I was actually one of the meds that I put on, lithium. It's a very dangerous med. It really destroyed my body. Like my thyroid actually blew up like from taking it. So they put me on that because they thought I was bipolar. So Black women are misdiagnosed or not diagnosed or just labeled the angry Black women. And that's one of the narratives that they love to push, that we're angry Black women. And they've always wanted to push that narrative though, of the angry Black women, even not related to mental health, just in general.
Wow, yeah. Like you know, why you feel like people push that narrative so much, about angry Black women?
It's always been there. We don't get very much grace. We've never been given grace. That's just the way our society is, sadly.
Yeah, I think that's horrible. I haven't encountered that or seen that in my life. I think Black women are honestly they deal with the most and are the most understanding to a lot of issues that go on. Um, you know, at 7 years old, you did your first art show. You talk about what was the inspiration behind you getting involved in arts and what made you want to do an art show.
Well, I was very like oblivious, and I didn't know what was going on. I was just creating art because art was my escape. I knew I was different. Everybody knew I was different, but we didn't know why. It usually was just like, oh, she just shy. That's just how she is. Leave her alone. She's shy. This is how she is. And aunt, my dad's aunt, my great aunt actually, she was a painter. So she saw some of my drawings and some of my artwork, and she was like, "I'm gonna bring her to this art show with me." So we got some of my artwork framed. I actually sold two paintings that day. So she took me to the art show, and I sold some of my work.
Do you feel like, art has been able to help you, like, while you deal with autism?
Yes, to this day, I still do art therapy.
Oh, wow. Like, what's the benefits of art therapy?
Well, for me, it helps me express myself. It helps ground me. Sometimes it's hard for me to express myself emotionally. Sometimes it helps me with mindfulness. If I can't speak verbally about something I'm feeling, I know that I can put it down on paper and draw it, and that's a way for me to express myself. So, and it's always been that way. Even before I got my autism diagnosis, art has always been there for me. When the whole world was like overwhelming me, I know that art was there, all forms of art. I was a dance teacher and a choreographer, so any type of art, I always had that to fall back on.
Oh, that's incredible. I was reading and said that you have 5 autoimmune disorders and you
Yes.
endured over 300 seizures. You talk about like being overwhelmed. Like, I imagine that would be like, one of those situations where it was overwhelming.
Yeah, but I'm actually about to hit, prayerfully, a 2-year milestone being seizure free. So I'm very grateful for that.
Bless.
And a 2-year milestone being seizure free. So I hope to continue on that streak, because that takes a big load off, not having to worry about that. And hopefully being able to come off of some of those meds, because at one point I was taking 40 pills a day.
Wow.
So that itself was very overwhelming. You got this huge pill case, and I had more than one because I had too many pills for one pill case. Even the big giant pill cases that they have like on Amazon, I had too many pills to fit in it. So I had more than one pill case. So even with that, it was like confusing to know if you took your meds. And of course, I have my dad because he helps me with a lot of things. I am a disabled adult who can't live on my own, and he is my caregiver, and he helps me with a lot of things like people. Um, I do have an invisible disability, so you can't always look at me and tell that I'm disabled. So sometimes people are like, "Your dad still helps me do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, there are a lot of things that I'm unable to do that he helps me with. Like, I can't cross the street alone, and nobody would know that unless I told him that."
Wow, like, that's like, great, like, for your dad. Like, what happens, like, like, I mean, obviously, like, your parents are older than you in the event, like, that he had passed, like, who would be your caregiver?
If I didn't have my dad,
Yeah.
um, a lot of like I'm very blessed. A lot of disabled adults, they end up in adult group homes. Me, that probably wouldn't happen. I have a lot of family, so that probably wouldn't happen to me. But I'm very blessed to have my dad. I am. My mother passed away, but I am very blessed to have my
Oh, sorry
dad.
for your loss. Yeah.
Thank you.
You were saying prayerfully, like, is faith important to you? Like, do you lean on a spiritual faith?
I'm a very spiritual person. I'm very big on faith. I don't feel like I would still be here if I didn't have my faith and I didn't have something to hold on to.
Most definitely, man. Like, that's amazing. Like, you've been honored, like, for your artwork. Like, I was reading, I guess, like, it was like you have your own day,
Yes.
and and Ayanna's Day, like in Westchester County, New York.
Yes.
Talk about, like, being presented with that proclamation.
April 26th is Ayanna Davis Day in Westchester County, New York. It was, I'm not shy, but it is a little bit overwhelming to be in front of crowds sometimes. So it was like a big crowd, a big auditorium at the county building. So, and they actually followed me for 2 months and made a documentary. So they showed the documentary, and then they presented me with my proclamation. So it was really cool, but it was overwhelming, and it was something to be really grateful for. It opened my eyes up to the work that I was doing, because sometimes when you're doing something, you don't really you're not really aware of the impact that you're having until somebody points it out to you, or until you look back and see what you're doing.
Most definitely, like I think like reading from like your stories, they seem so creative because you incorporate different characters, characters with vitiligo, albinism, limb differences. Like what gave you the idea to add like these characters that usually are underrepresented in literature?
Well, I design clothing, so I have been featured in many fashion shows. So I like to feature models, who are different. I had models with vitiligo, and models who were just different, and I feel like they should have representation for their community as well. And I always root for the underdog, so somebody has to.
Most definitely, yeah. Like I think everybody loves like a good underdog story. And like, it's so refreshing like to hear like the success that you're having with your books. Like how long does it take like, for you to like, finish a book from like start to finish, and like what's your process like?
It actually depends on the process. Like when it's my own book, it depends on what mind state I'm in. If I'm doing something for myself while working on something for somebody else. Like last July, like I put 6 books out in just July.
Wow.
Some of them were coloring books, some of them were like teaching books for like toddlers, your ABCs. Um, so it depends on the project. If I'm working with an author, I actually just completed a book with an excuse me, with another author. It took us about 2 weeks, because she was a very she was very pleasant to work with. She gave me my illustrator notes, but then she gave me like full creative control, which I love, by the way. And but we just went back and forth. I would show her something. She'd be like, I love this, but can you show me what it would look like this way? And, when you have a good author with good energy to work with, it just makes things easier. And it kind of like you don't get creative blockages, because when you work somebody with somebody who has you like on edge, you kind of like, you kind of hesitate to like your creative juices kind of get blocked, because you don't want to upset them. So it depends on the project. My children's book that I authored and illustrated, the one that I'm most proud of, I'm Autistic and I'm Phenomenal. It took me um longer to like put the idea all together in my head than to actually sit down and write it and illustrate it. So it always depends on the author, the idea, what type of illustrations they want, and then what I picture in my head to actually put down on paper.
Wow, like that's really incredible. Like your latest book, it's called "I'm Autistic and I'm
Yes.
Phenomenal." Like can you tell me a little bit about that book?
That's my favorite book. That's the book that I'm most proud of. And it just really speaks about autism, and it's told through the eyes of a little Black autistic girl. I chose for it to be shown through the eyes of a Black autistic girl, because, Black women are the least represented group of autistic people. And it speaks about, the challenges that autistic people go through, but it also speaks about the joys of autism, our good characteristics and traits, because you hear about the bad sides of autism, but the good sides are often left out. And it's important for people to know that it's not all bad. You can live with autism, you can flourish with autism. It's not a bad thing. And just because you're different, it doesn't mean that you're less.
Most definitely, Ayanna Davis, phenomenally autistic. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too.